Hey bros, this is the Steroid Journals. This is a video series that sort of documents my journey into deciding to use anabolic steroids, what I used, how I used them, what the results were, all that kind of stuff. It's as egocentric as this sounds, it's all about me and my own decisions. It is not meant to be instructional. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't use. Not here to tell you how to use them, what to use. I'm not here even to advocate the use of them. I'll leave that to the other guys. I'm just not interested in getting in trouble, and I'm here to just tell you what I did, as anonymously as possible. So I'm not going to give out any names or anything, or specific websites, any of that kind of shit. So where we last left off was me talking about the fact that I was finally getting to the point where I was serious. I was seriously considering using anabolic steroids. And the reason why this is the case is because I was finally having a conversation with a bodybuilder friend of mine who is open about using them. And I thought, just so many of the things that he said made me realize, why am I not using them again? I mean, I was complaining that I had been at a plateau for so long, and so just a lot of what he was saying was making sense. So I called him up and said, you know what? I'm serious now. I'm definitely going to use them. Even though while I was telling him that, wasn't 100% sure that I was going to go ahead and go through with it, I still knew that I wanted to do a lot more research. I'd already done years of research, but I wanted to check out some specific things, like what exactly this whole ordering process is like. Am I comfortable with that? Am I worried I'm going to get in trouble? What it actually is like to inject steroids, how painful that is, how many times you got to do it, all that kind of stuff. So the first step, though, is after I told him I was for sure going to do it, he wasn't going to sell them to me, of course, because he doesn't want to get in trouble, so he referred me to one of the few different ways that he gets them, and that's from a website. Now, like I said, I'm not going to give out any website names or addresses or whatever, but what I can say is that this website or any of the other websites that are like this, if you just do a Google search of anabolic steroid forums, you're going to find it. It's probably going to be the top result even. So that's all it is. And there are a lot of websites that are like this, but the way they're structured, they might even all be owned by the same person or something, but the way they're structured is it's a forum where people get together and talk about anabolic steroids, but there are what they call sponsors. And all sponsors really are the laboratories, the different brands that make and distribute steroids. But they call them sponsors because they legitimately are. They are paying a fee to have their advertising up there and have their own little sub forums where people can, find out how to order from them and all that kind of shit. So it's basically just a hub, a way to find these different brands. Now, the funny thing about the brand situation is it's kind of divided into two. There's overseas, which are the really well-known ones that are made in Europe, and everybody around the world knows about these particular brands, and a lot of people will only buy from these particular overseas brands because they're so well-known and so many blood test results people have posted that prove that, yeah, these particular brands are legit. Then there's domestic, and domestic can get a little sketchy because what domestic means is over here in the States, there is a guy who's buying the raw materials and then he makes the stuff in his home laboratory. Sounds like something from Breaking Bad. So it can be a little dangerous, a little risky. Again, I'm not here to give out any advice, but I personally wouldn't go with the domestic lab that has very few threads in their subforum with people saying, yep, I got my stuff, here are my blood test results, it is legit. wouldn't do that. So I noticed that the particular lab that, or sponsor, if you want to call it that my buddy was directing me to was one where there was a fuck ton of threads of people saying, yeah, hey, I got my touchdown. That's a term that they use for successful delivery. We'll get into the terminology in a second. And tons of people were saying that they got their stuff, that they did their blood test results, and that those were good. They post their actual blood test results, or they just say, hey, you know, I gained X number of pounds of muscle or whatever. So the particular sponsor that my buddy pointed me to was probably the most liked, the most well-known domestic one. And it's kind of interesting that he didn't point me to the overseas one, but those can be risky for other reasons. Customs can get involved and seize your shit, and you don't get it, and you spent all that money. So that's one risk, and it's much more expensive to do overseas ones. So risk and reward, you know. So anyway, he was pointing me to this one particular one. I was checking them out myself, making sure I felt comfortable with them. Saw tons of threads of people saying, yeah, I got my stuff. It was good stuff. And let's get into some of that terminology because it threw me for a loop. So basically, you never call steroids, roids, or anabolics by those terms. It's always called gear. And also, like I said, you don't call it a successful delivery or whatever. That's a touchdown. Needles are not called needles. They're called pins, and you don't say you're injecting, you say you're pinning. And I guess the reason why all these terms exist is to create an extra layer of safety so that at no point anybody can be pinned down by saying, hey, I injected steroids, or my steroids were delivered on such and such dates. That if they're using these other terms, maybe they feel like that's legally more ambiguous, because then let's just be real here, guys. This is not legal. Certainly there are doctors out there who can prescribe testosterone. That's called testosterone replacement therapy. That is much more expensive, but it is an actual avenue out there, especially in places like LA, where there are these clinics everywhere. These clinics exist only to sell you steroids, basically. In case you didn't know that, it is basically legal to get steroids from an actual doctor who is basically just selling steroids is all, with fancy names like rejuvenation therapy and things like that. It's just testosterone. If you're still completely uncomfortable with this whole like black market scenario, you can just go to a straight up doctor and get testosterone replacement therapy. But what they prescribe isn't really in the potency or the quantity as what most of these guys on this forum are going to be using. And you can't really get a doctor to give you more than what they want to prescribe you. So anyways, that's probably why those terms exist, is they're just trying to protect themselves, protect the forum, protect the laboratories. And one other thing though that I noticed, this is what really helped me not just be more sure that I wanted to use steroids, but absolutely 100% sure, which is just that I found out that all of these guys lie about it. There was this thread where somebody was like, so when people ask you if you're using anabolic steroids, do you admit to it? And every single fucking dude that posted in this forum said, no, of course not. I want to get in trouble. I always tell them that I don't. Or like, a couple of them would be like, well, I try to deflect it and make it into a joke. Like, if I were using, I'd be much bigger, don't you think? Or, some people, one guy did say that he says, of course, how do you think I got this big? But he was the only one. Every single other of these guys was saying that they lied about it. And I was like, that makes so much sense, because here I am looking at all of these supposed natty, natural guys on YouTube or whatever who all claim to be natural. And I even have a acquaintance of mine who has an Instagram account where he claims to be natural and natty and stuff, but in person, I kind of got him to agree he wasn't, because I was kind of joking with him. I was like, oh, hey, do you... Because he was something about him being angry or whatever, and I was like, oh, yeah, you probably get really aggressive when you use Tren. We'll talk about Tren later, but And then he was like, no, 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 I'm too much of a noob to use that one. I use the easier shit. And I was like, so you admit it, you're not natural. And he was like, well, what's your definition of natural? So anyways, the point is, like, seeing all of these guys say that, yeah, they totally lie and claim that they're natural, but here in this forum, they're all freely admitting amongst themselves that they use anabolics. I was just like, that makes so much sense to me now. And I'm never going to get as big as these guys unless I do, and I want to, and so I'm going to do it. So I was ready to make my order, and I guess that is what the next video will be about, is the whole process that I went through, and trust me, it was a process. So yep, see you bros in the next video. Bye.